Welcome to today's podcast. We're going to talk today of whether you should go to the Canton Fair or not. So before we get started, I want to thank you whether you're listening on iTunes or you're watching on YouTube. I did a webinar recently about going to the Canton Fair. I had the good fortune recently to attend the fair. And the first time I had gone, but what an incredible experience that was. And just going to China, all of the excitement, seeing all the different products, pretty amazing in what it was. But since I've come back and talked a little about it, I've actually done a webinar, gone into great detail and length, but I wanted to try and address maybe some of the more pertinent questions people have about should you go to Amazon or should you go to the Canton Fair if you're an Amazon seller. And like all things, it depends. What the Canton Fair is really, it's in Canton, which is Guangzhou is the Chinese word, which it is the world's largest wholesale product fair and product expo, if you will. It's like a big convention and trade center. And just to kind of give you a little bit of pointed numbers and what it is, there are over 20,000 different vendors there. And many of us have been to trade shows within our own industries here in the United States. But the thing about this show is it is just huge beyond comprehension. I probably have been to, gosh, I don't know, 30, 40 different trade fairs, or shows in my buying career, buying items, but I have never been to one like this. And there are so many products there. There's one floor where they had literally over 500 vendors of people selling just clocks. And then there's toys, there's every kinds of products, and then there's 3 phases. So you multiply that times 3, you've got over 60,000 vendors in one place who will sell them private label products for you. So really the question that I want to try and address today is if you are interested in being an Amazon seller, should you go to the fair? Well, my whole thought is if you can't, as I was walking through, I couldn't help but think, if you can't find a $100,000 plus business here, you probably ought to just go back and get a job because this business is not for you. I made the joke a couple of times. It's almost like I felt like I was in 1849 here in the United States, and there was at Sutter's Mill where we had the first gold rush. Now there's gold there. You gotta bend over and you gotta pick it up. You gotta find it. You gotta work for it. But of course it's there. And I felt like literally every aisle almost had some kind of gold in it because you see every product that you could ever imagine. And then you see some that you could have never imagined. So you're walking through really kind of a little bit in awe. But the thing about should you go, yeah, I think you should if you're serious about your business. It's not for everybody. Now, if you're just starting out and you're getting all of your products from Alibaba where everybody else is, it's probably fine, and you should probably stick with that and get up and running a little bit. I think by the time you put the time and effort and money and investment into going to China, I think you should be a little bit farther along the path than being brand new. That is, unless you're brand new and you really kind of want to leapfrog everybody and bypass the same type of items that everybody else can find on Alibaba. And again, if you go in with a little bit of a budget, again, not a place for a limited budget. If you go in and with the anticipation that you're going to find an entire brand of products to sell on Amazon and other, it's there and everything else is there. One of the things to realize going in is that they're not doing $100 piece minimums here. Your minimums are going to be a little bit higher, and you need to be prepared for that as well. So again, not for a low budget entry level type of scenario. The other thing I think is a very valuable way to be able to do this is you're able to truly establish that relationship with a buyer. If you know or the buyer knows that you've flown halfway around the world to stand there and talk to them, they know you're a serious buyer. And because of that, they're going to give you better treatment. You're going to get to know who they are face to face. So that relationship that is so important, you're going to be able to rely on that and depend on that and use that going forward. The other thing I found when I was there is that I felt I was getting probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30% less in pricing than I would if I were negotiating with them on Alibaba. So the pricing is advantageous all in itself. Plus, the other thing, too, is that most of these suppliers I found are willing to do some things from a custom standpoint. And as we all know, sometimes you see a product on Amazon and one person gets it and then 6 other people will go find out who the supplier is and go and have it created. Well, if you go here, you will find that most of these suppliers will actually create custom items for you, which again is going to separate you from your other sellers and literally have a higher barrier to entry from other competition. So if you're truly serious about doing this, I find the only thing I found that was hard, it's a long trip, and that you need to be prepared for the jet lag is a killer. However, it's kind of exciting because you're also sitting there on a personal note thinking I'm in China. And I never in my wildest dreams in my life thought I would end up in China. and it's really kind of one of those click your heels together, Toto, we're not in Kansas moments anymore. But you're sitting there and you're going through all these products. And I was very fortunate. As I was walking through the fair, I found four new products that basically I found my first one in 10 minutes, or I found the booth in 10 minutes, and then started working and talking with them after that. So there is anything and everything there to do. So I really I've done a longer webinar, and I'll see if I can put it in the notes here below, whether it's on iTunes or whether you're watching on YouTube or you're on my website. If you want to go into a whole lot of detail, I go into some funny stories and some different things that happened to me while I was there. But you can watch that webinar if you like. But I really want to do a shorter version so you know what going to Canton was like, know if it was for you or not, and specifically really try and suggest if you're at a certain stage what you can go. Now, again, if you're brand new, it's still okay to go. It's not all that expensive to go. The flights and the food and the hotels are very, very low in price compared to what we would pay here in the Western world. However, it's a good way to jumpstart and leapfrog everybody else who's sitting there worried about dealing with Alibaba. If you're an experienced seller and you've kind of mastered the Alibaba type of finding products process, this is your next step too. So you can take your business as far as you want to go, and I don't know how you could get to those higher levels if you don't do something or go to a Canton Fair or something like this. But anyway, that's kind of the nickel tour of hopefully that'll give you a little bit of information on what the Canton Fair is and who should go. Now, on a side note, I had such a great time, and it was so profitable for me as an Amazon seller. I'm actually going back on this next fair, and actually they had two fairs, one in April and then one in October. And I'm actually taking a group of people over in October where literally what we're going to do is we're going to have a day of coaching and teaching where we're all going to get together and we're going to help each other build our Amazon businesses. We're going to talk and have some theories, some strategy, but also try and address each person's issues within the group, within their business, so we can help them grow. And then we're actually going to do something that's a little bit unique too, is we're actually going to go out to some of the showrooms that are there in Canton of people who are not exhibiting at the fair. And I think that's going to be a different way to find products as well. We're just going to get on a bus and go to one building that's got like over 500 vendors in it and walk through that as well. And then we're going to do some guided tours and different things through the tour itself. But if that's something you have any interest in going, take a look at, you'll see a link pop up here on the screen, or if you're listening, it will be markscottadams.com/Canton-fair. And if you have any interest in going on that trip, just go ahead and do that, read that, and go from there. So with that said, I hope that's a little bit of information that gives you a little bit better insight on going to Canton and whether you should or not. And as always, thanks for listening, and see you next time.